It was raining the day I met Daniel. Not a gentle drizzle, but the kind of rain that soaks through your clothes in seconds and turns sidewalks into rivers. I had ducked into a small second-hand bookstore tucked between a laundromat and a pharmacy, more for shelter than anything else. The smell of old paper and ink hit me like a wave, warm, nostalgic, and comforting. I was shaking water from my coat and muttering about the weather when I heard him laugh. Not a big laugh, just a soft, amused sound that came from the far side of the store. "Looks like the rain caught someone unprepared," he said, peeking over a tall stack of books. I looked up, slightly embarrassed, and met the eyes of a man I'd never forget. He wasn't movie star handsome, not in the way magazines define beauty. But he had a presence. Tall, well-dressed in a gray sweater and dark jeans, his dark hair damp at the edges like he too had just come in from the storm. His eyes were the first thing I noticed. Deep-set and warm, the color of coffee left too long in the pot. There was kindness there, but something else too. Stillness. Like he knew who he was and didn't need the world's approval. I gave him a polite smile and said, "Unprepared is my middle name." He chuckled and motioned toward a chair across from his. "You might as well sit. The sky doesn't look like it's letting up anytime soon." Normally, I wouldn't sit with strangers. But there was something about him, an ease, a quiet confidence. I sat, keeping my damp bag at my feet. He was reading The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. That surprised me. "I always thought that was a book only women read," I said without thinking. He looked up, one brow raised. "Everyone should read it. It teaches you things most people spend a lifetime avoiding." I didn't realize it then, but Daniel had a way of making everything sound profound. Like every sentence was a quote you might underline. He wasn't trying to impress me, he was just like that. We talked for nearly an hour while the rain poured outside. Books, music, how I hated my job in marketing but stayed because of the health benefits. He listened without interrupting, like what I was saying actually mattered. Then, just before I left, he asked if I'd like to meet again. "Same time next week," he said, "weather permitting, or not." I hesitated for half a second before saying yes. That's how it started. Falling in love with Daniel felt like walking into a home I didn't know I'd been missing. After that first rainy afternoon, we met again. And again. The bookstore became our spot, our quiet haven away from the rush of the world. But soon, he invited me out, a cozy wine bar tucked behind a jazz lounge downtown, then a botanical garden lit up at night, then a picnic under a canopy of trees in the middle of nowhere. With Daniel, everything had intention. He didn't just make plans, he curated moments. He brought sunflowers on our third date. I told him once, in passing, that I preferred them over roses because they looked like joy. He remembered. That's how he was, he remembered everything. Not because he was trying to impress me. It just seemed to be his nature. My friends noticed the change in me. I was softer, lighter, more present. "Is he real?" my best friend Kayla asked after meeting him. "Like, he reads poetry and remembers your coffee order?" "What's the catch?" I laughed it off. "There isn't one. He's just different." My mom met him a few months later over Sunday dinner. She loved him immediately. "That boy has old soul energy," she told me afterward. "He looks at you like you're his favorite memory." He did. He really did. I started sleeping over more. We fell into an easy rhythm. Sunday mornings became our favorite. He made strong coffee and played Miles Davis. We'd sit on the balcony in matching robes he bought us from a boutique, sipping coffee and talking about everything and nothing. There were moments, tiny ones, that felt almost too perfect. Like the way he never seemed to have a bad day. Or how he dodged certain questions about his past. He didn't talk much about his family, except to say he'd grown distant from them over time. When I asked about old friends, he'd vaguely mention college roommates or work acquaintances. But I let it go. He was so present with me. So loving, so consistent, so good. why dig where there was no dirt? Or so I thought. 6 months in, we were what everyone called the perfect couple. On social media, it was filtered smiles, wine glasses, weekend trips to vineyards and art galleries. But in private, it was more than just photos, it felt real. We didn't argue. We talked through disagreements like adults. He remembered every anniversary, even small ones, like the day we first kissed or the first movie night. He was intentional in ways I didn't even know how to match. When I mentioned once that my dad used to play chess with me before he passed, Daniel bought a hand-carved chess set and said, "Teach me. I want to know the way he made you laugh when you won." He never tried to outshine my memories. He made space for them. When I got sick for a week, Daniel took time off work to stay with me. He brought me tea, held my hair when I threw up, and read to me from my favorite novel until I fell asleep. No one had ever done that before. Not even my exes. Especially not my exes. And then came the key. One quiet Wednesday night, he handed me a small velvet box. I froze, thinking it was a ring. But inside was a brass key. "To here," he said. "I want you to know this is your space too. Come when you want. Leave what you want. This isn't just my home anymore." I teared up. I'm not someone who cries easily, but in that moment, I felt so chosen. So loved. I whispered thank you and wrapped my arms around him. That night, we made love like we were trying to imprint on each other's bones. That's the thing about Daniel, he made everything feel deep. Meaningful. Like even silence had weight. But as I started spending more time in his space, I began to notice, the silences weren't always peaceful. Sometimes, they felt like shadows. He kept a drawer in his study locked. Always. I once asked jokingly, "What are you hiding in there? Secrets and lies?" He laughed, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Just tax documents and boring work stuff. Nothing interesting. Another time, I saw him close his laptop quickly when I walked in. I wasn't trying to snoop, I just happened to be coming to ask if he wanted tea. His smile came fast. Too fast. "Just work emails," he said. "Nothing exciting." I nodded, but something about the moment stuck to me like a splinter. Then there were the late-night phone calls. Once or twice a week, he'd step out onto the balcony and speak in a low voice. I assumed they were work-related. He said he worked with international clients. But once, I overheard part of it. "No, not now. I told you I'd fix it. Just, please, not tonight." When he came back in, his whole energy had shifted. But he kissed me and said everything was fine. I wanted to believe him. And so I did. That's what love does to you. It paints red flags the color of roses. I told myself he was just private. That some people took longer to open up. That if something was wrong, he'd tell me eventually. Still, tiny seeds of doubt began to bloom in the corners of my mind. Quiet things. Whispers. But I buried them beneath the weight of the love he showed me. Because it was love, wasn't it? He made me feel like the center of his world. Like no one else mattered. But the truth? Someone else did matter. And I was about to find out just how far love can go before it begins to feel like a lie. It was a Sunday afternoon, the kind that asked for laziness, socks, coffee, rain tapping the windows. I was curled up on Daniel's couch, flipping through a magazine, while he typed away on his laptop. The usual background jazz played softly from his Bluetooth speaker. Everything felt normal. Until his phone buzzed. It was face up on the coffee table, and I happened to glance at it. I wasn't snooping. Not really. It was instinct. The name on the screen flashed, Elena. The message preview read, *, "Are you free to talk? It's *. I didn't say anything right away. I watched his reaction instead. He looked at the screen, then casually flipped the phone face down. No flicker of surprise. No explanation. He kept typing like nothing had happened. But his jaw had tightened just slightly. I waited a few minutes. Then I asked, careful with my tone, everything okay? He smiled, just a bit too easily. Yeah. Just work. Elena from work? He didn't flinch. MHM. She's, technically family too. A distant cousin. We do consulting on some projects together. I nodded slowly. You've never mentioned her before. Daniel shrugged. You've never mentioned your uncle in Texas either. I laughed softly, brushing it off. But my mind wouldn't let go of it. Something about that text felt personal. Urgent. Not like a work message. Later that night, he went out to take a call. Said he needed some air. I watched from the window as he paced the balcony, phone pressed to his ear, voice low and sharp. He looked tense. Nothing like the calm, composed man I knew. I told myself it wasn't my business. Everyone had things they didn't talk about. And we were happy, weren't we? Still, a question took root that night. How much can you really know someone when they don't let you into every room in their heart? 2 days later, I found the photo. I was looking for a pair of socks in his drawer when I noticed a slim black notebook tucked at the back. It wasn't hidden, not exactly, but something told me it wasn't meant to be found. Inside were lists, books, places, wine labels. Nothing unusual. But halfway through, a photo slipped out. It was old. A little crumpled. It showed Daniel with a woman and a small boy, no older than 5. The woman had her hand on his chest. The child was in his arms. They were smiling like a family. On the back, it read in looping handwriting. Elena, Daniel, and Eli, summer in Santorini. Asterisk. My heart stuttered. Elena. Not a cousin. Not a colleague. A woman close enough to go on a summer vacation. A child close enough to call him dad. The air in the room suddenly felt colder. Everything, the drawer, the secret calls, the locked study, it all clicked into place. Daniel was hiding something. Or someone. And I had just cracked open the door to a truth I wasn't sure I was ready to face. I didn't sleep that night. The photo stayed with me like an echo I couldn't silence. The little boy's smile. Elena's hand on Daniel's chest. The way he was holding them both, tenderly, like they were his. And maybe they were. I stared at the ceiling for hours, trying to breathe past the tightness in my chest. My mind raced with questions, but one screamed louder than the rest. Who was I to him? Asterisk. By morning, I still hadn't confronted him. I didn't know how. Or maybe I didn't want to break the illusion just yet. Maybe part of me still hoped there was an explanation that made it all okay. But everything started to look different after that. The wine dates. The jazz. The perfect weekends. They weren't just romantic anymore, they were suspicious. Was he overcompensating for something? I started noticing more signs. One afternoon, I called him while he was at work. He didn't answer. That wasn't unusual. But I noticed something odd when I checked his Instagram a few hours later. He'd posted a story, an artsy shot of a street mural with the caption, asterisk, city walks are good for the soul. Asterisk, he wasn't in the office. He was out. Alone? I replied to the story, asterisk, where's that? Asterisk. No response. He left it on read. 2 hours later, he texted. Daniel asterisk, sorry, meetings all day. Just decompressing after asterisk. Me asterisk looks peaceful. You okay, asterisk? Daniel asterisk, always better after hearing from you. Asterisk. Deflection. Charm. Classic Daniel. But I wasn't charmed anymore. That weekend, he invited me over. Everything was normal, too normal. He made dinner, poured wine, played soft music. But I couldn't stop watching him. Every word, every gesture, felt rehearsed now. After dinner, he stepped away to take a call. Again. I followed, quiet as breath, and stood just out of view near the hallway. His voice was low. Urgent. I told you I'll handle it. No, listen, I am being careful. You can't just show up whenever you feel like it. Not now. Not with her around. A pause. No, she doesn't know. Yet. My heart dropped. She doesn't know. She. Me asterisk. He was talking about me. I stepped back, my pulse thudding in my ears. I moved quickly to the bathroom and splashed water on my face. My reflection stared back at me, blank, wide-eyed, unfamiliar. I had become a stranger in a story I thought I was writing. When he came back, he smiled as if nothing happened. Pulled me into his arms and whispered, "You feel like home." I almost laughed. What a cruel thing to say when you're building houses with someone else. I didn't ask about the call. Not that night. But I knew what I had to do. I needed answers. And if Daniel wouldn't give them to me, I'd find them myself. The next day, I left Daniel's apartment early. I told him I had a meeting, he kissed my forehead, told me to go conquer the world, and went back to sleep, still smelling like wine and secrets. I didn't go to work. I went looking for Elena. Her name, her face from the photo, and the little boy haunted me. I had no last name, no address, but I had the photo and I had Daniel's social circle. What he thought was privacy, I now saw as a wall. And I was ready to climb it. I started with social media. I searched through everyone Daniel followed on Instagram, every comment, every post tagged with locations we visited. It took hours, but eventually I found her. At @ElenaMora__. Her page was private, but her bio read, *mother. Creative. Coffee before anything. *. There was a single profile picture. Her face was tilted to the side, half lit by the sun. She had the same smile as in the photo. Warm. Quiet. Tired. And in her tagged photos, there was one from a friend's page, a birthday party, maybe. Kids, balloons. And there, unmistakably, was the boy from the photo, Eli. He looked about 6 now. Older than in the photo I found. He was blowing out candles with a man behind him. My blood ran cold. It was Daniel. No mistaking him, even if the angle was odd. Same sharp jawline. Same watch on his wrist. His hand on Eli's back. The caption from the friend read, *happy 6th to the coolest little guy. So lucky to have parents like Elena and D. Parents D. Daniel. My stomach turned. I sat on the floor in my living room, hands shaking, heart pounding. He was a father. And he hadn't told me. Not once. Not ever. I clicked back through the tagged photos. There weren't many. But enough. A few from holidays, always the same 3 people, Elena, Eli, and Daniel. He never looked uncomfortable. He looked like he belonged. I stared at those pictures for what felt like hours, trying to reconcile the man in them with the man who had whispered forever into my hair just 2 nights ago. Everything suddenly felt dirty. Fake. I texted Kayla. What would you do if you found out someone you love was living a double life? She responded almost immediately. Kayla whose double life are we talking about? Daniel. Kayla what happened? I didn't answer right away. I didn't know how. How do you explain the ground crumbling under your feet in a text? I stood up. Pacing. Shaking. Angry. And then I made a decision. I was going to find Elena. Not to fight. Not to accuse. But because I needed the truth. And I had a feeling she did too. I found Elena 3 days later. She posted a story at a cafe downtown, just a shot of a cappuccino and a book. I recognized the place immediately. A quiet spot with big windows and ivy-covered walls. Daniel had taken me there once. Said the croissants reminded him of Paris. I wondered if he'd taken her first. I got there in 20 minutes, heart thudding the entire way. I didn't know what I was going to say, or how this would end. All I knew was that I couldn't keep pretending not to know. She was alone, reading, just like the story. No child. No Daniel. Her hair was pulled back loosely, a few strands falling over her forehead. She looked peaceful. Tired, maybe. Like a woman who had spent years being strong. I almost turned around. Almost. But I walked up to her table and said, "Hi. Are you Elena?" She looked up slowly, brows raised slightly in confusion. "Yes? I'm sorry to bother you." I sat down before she could stop me. "I think we need to talk. About Daniel." The second his name left my lips, her expression shifted. Guarded. Wary. Like she'd just been hit in the chest but refused to show it. She didn't ask who I was. Instead, she closed her book, set her cup down, and said, "I was wondering how long it would take." I blinked. "You knew?" She nodded. Not angry. Not shocked. Just sad. "Not your face." But I knew there was someone. "He's been slipping." I felt like I'd been punched. "I didn't know about you," I said quickly. "Not until I found the photo. You and Eli." He never told me." She nodded again. "He doesn't tell anyone anything." "Not really." We sat in silence for a long time. Just two women sitting at a cafe table, each holding pieces of a puzzle the other one didn't ask for. Finally, I whispered, "How long have you two been together?" She gave a small, bitter laugh. "Too long. We've been on and off for 8 years. He's Eli's father. We were engaged once. Called it off when I found out he cheated. He swore he changed. I let him back in, mostly for Eli. I wanted him to have a father." My throat tightened. "Does Eli know?" "Only that his father is busy. That he loves him but can't always be there." I looked away. Shame crawled under my skin. I had loved Daniel, deeply. But the woman sitting across from me had built a life with him. A child. A future. I had been a shadow walking through her story without knowing it. "I didn't know," I said again. "If I had." "You'd have left?" she asked gently. "Yes." She studied me for a long time. Then she said, "Then you're already braver than I was." And for the first time since this nightmare began, I cried. Right there in a cafe, across from the woman who unknowingly shared my heartache, I let the truth settle in. Daniel had loved us both. And lied to us all. I didn't go back to Daniel's apartment after meeting Elena. I didn't call. I didn't answer his texts. I disappeared into myself, into the silence of my own apartment, into the smell of betrayal that clung to everything he ever touched. The key to his place sat on my nightstand like a ghost, cold and heavy. The night after the cafe, I cried until I couldn't anymore. Not loud sobs. Not dramatic tears. Just the quiet, exhausted kind, like my body had finally admitted what my heart already knew. It was over. And yet, I still loved him. That was the hardest part. How do you stop loving someone who made you feel like the most beautiful version of yourself? How do you undo months of memories, every touch, every word that now felt like a lie? You don't. You just leave anyway. The next evening, I gathered what I had at his apartment. Clothes. Books. A toothbrush. The mug he said looked like me. I didn't take anything that wasn't mine. I didn't leave a note. But as I was locking the door behind me, he walked in. His face shifted the second he saw the suitcase. "Hey," he said, setting his keys down slowly. "What's going on?" I turned to face him. My heart pounded, but my hands were steady. "I know about Elena." "And Eli." Silence. For the first time since I met him, Daniel had no words. His mouth opened, closed again. He looked like a man cornered. "I met her," I continued. "She didn't know about me either." He exhaled sharply. "I was going to tell you." "When?" I snapped. "After another vacation? Another bottle of wine? After you lied to me for a whole year?" His voice broke then, lower, more desperate. "It wasn't a lie. Not all of it. I love you. I do. But my life, it's complicated. You don't understand." "You're right," I said. "I don't understand how you could kiss me goodnight and then go tuck your son into bed. I don't understand how you could tell me I was your home when you already had one." "I never meant to hurt you," he said softly. "You didn't mean for me to find out," I corrected. He moved toward me, slowly, like he thought proximity might fix it. "We could still figure this out. I can talk to Elena. We can make this work. I choose you." God, I wanted to believe him. But I remembered Elena's eyes. I remembered the weight she carried. The truth she already lived with. And I saw my future in her pain. I shook my head. "No. You don't get to choose me halfway. You don't get to love two women and ask us to accept it." He stepped back like my words had slapped him. "So that's it?" "Yes," I whispered. "That's it." I left the key on the table and walked out without looking back. I didn't break down in the hallway. I didn't cry in the elevator. I saved that for when I got home and lay in my bed alone, grieving not just the man I lost, but the version of me who thought I'd finally found real love. Grief doesn't always come in sobs and storms. Sometimes it comes in quiet mornings, in the ache of waking up and remembering you're alone again. In the silence of a phone that no longer lights up with good morning texts. In the sting of knowing that love, real or not, had been shared with someone else. The days after leaving Daniel were blurry. I deleted our photos. Blocked his number. Journaled obsessively, as if writing it all down would drain it out of me. Kayla stayed over for the first few nights, letting me cry, rage, and fall apart in peace. And Elena? We never spoke again. We didn't need to. Some heartbreaks bind people quietly. Without explanation. Without follow-up. I went back to therapy. Told my therapist everything, from the first spark in the bookstore to the final goodbye. She listened, never judging, gently guiding me to face the truth I'd been avoiding even during the relationship. I had ignored red flags. I had wanted the dream more than the reality. And I had fallen in love with a version of him that didn't exist alone. But slowly, things began to change. I started cooking for myself again. I bought new bedsheets, changed the music I listened to, rearranged my apartment. I rediscovered the version of me that had existed before him. Not the broken version. The whole one. I traveled. Alone at first. Then with friends. I said yes to new things, painting classes, Sunday markets, hiking trails. I flirted again. Carefully. Slowly. And one day, I met someone. He wasn't poetic like Daniel. He didn't recite jazz trivia or write me notes on napkins. But he listened. He showed up. He was honest. On our 5th date, he said, "I don't want to play games. If I like someone, I let them know. I hope that's okay." I smiled. Not because it was grand. But because it was simple, and real. A year later, we were watching the sunset on a rooftop when he asked me what I had learned from my last relationship. I looked out over the glowing city and said. He kept showing me love, until I found the truth. And the truth hurt. But it also set me free. And this time I meant it. Because love, I'd learned, isn't just about the beautiful moments. It's about trust. About presence. About being seen fully, and still being chosen. And finally, I had chosen myself.